Hey, elite educators and purposeful parents. Welcome to today's video where I will show you the top 5 books that every educator must read. And some of these books are even great for parents. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Kimberly Denis with Education Noire, where we help you level up your practice for student growth and achievement. And if you're returning, welcome back. Thank you for being a part of the community. Today's video is all about the books that you must have in your library. These are must reads for anyone who works with children and youth. Stay tuned. This first book actually helped me understand what kind of teacher I am. I am the kind of teacher who likes to teach off of objectives and off of my agenda. I absolutely hate doing and writing lesson plans. I know what I want to teach. I know my end goal. I do start from my backwards planning back to the front. I do all that planning, but generally that planning takes place in my head. I know where I want my students to go and I help them get there. I plan the steps for them to get there. I just actually hate to write it down in the form of a lesson plan. I got this book. It's called Teach with Your Strengths. And what I love about this book is it also has like an inventory. And in that inventory, after you finish, it actually tells you what kind of teacher you are based on how you answer the survey. And so of course, there is actually a technical term for the type of teacher that I am because I hate to write lesson plans. I'd rather do it in a list form versus the lesson plan templates that most schools make us teachers use or expect us to use, I'll say. So this book actually will help you understand the type of educator that you are. And it's called Teach with Your Strengths. This next book was very enlightening for me. It helped me understand some of the issues that we are facing in regards to education in America and education reform, even culturally responsive teaching. This book is definitely a must, and not just for Black educators, but for any educator. I also recommend this book for parents to read. I was we had an Antiracist University 101 where I'm currently teaching, which was basically a series of workshops. And during my first one, they gave us a list of books that they suggested that we read, and this was one of the books. So I read this book, and we actually heard from the author. She was at one of our workshops, Dr. Bettina Love. And again, this book will help you understand, and not only understand, but also learn how to maneuver some of the issues that we face in education, especially when it comes to the achievement gap. I don't really like that term, but for now, for lack of a better term, I'll use that one. So it will really help you understand and how to maneuver around the achievement gap, fill the gap. This is definitely a must read. And this book is called We Want to Do More Than Survive. And the subtitle is really powerful. and it's abolitionist teaching and educational freedom. So this is a must read. Again, very enlightening. It helped me understand how to work with students who come from impoverished backgrounds. A lot. It helped me understand how to work with them, understand how to push them, understand how to encourage them, and understand like why some of these things are happening in education. The next book is written by an author. I've read several of his books, Ibram X. Kendi, and this one, How to Be an Anti-Racist. Of course, I'm a Black woman, and I decided to read this book. And I had to check myself after reading this book. I had to, I've learned a lot of new terms like uplift suasion, and I learned a lot of the history of racism and these different terms, and, the study of how this whole genealogy came about and the IQ test. And I learned so much reading this book, which pushed me to read his other book, Stamped from the Beginning. But this one, How to Be an Anti-Racist, is imperative that anyone working with children read this book, and not only read this book, but practice what the book is talking about. Um, you know, Again, like I said, I had to check myself, even with my anti-racist mindset, and I recommend this book for educators and for parents. Again, anyone working with children, this is a must. This is critical that we read this book. And it's called How to Be an Anti-Racist. I also recommend Stand from the Beginning, any of Ibram X. Kendi, any of his books. But this one right here, for sure, every educator, every parent needs to read this book. And I dare say that parents read it with your child. I would say probably 11 and up would be a good age to read and discuss this with them. If you have children younger than that, it's important that you read it and digest the material so that you can then teach your child in a way that's age appropriate for them. But 11 and up, I think they could handle reading this book with you, and you all have discussions on this book. But it's a must read for anyone working with children. The next book is really the Bible for culturally responsive teaching. And of course, in education, we have all this jargon and all these buzzwords that come up and they come and go. But culturally responsive teaching is something that is here to stay. And in order to really understand how to incorporate the practice into your classroom, I recommend this book, Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain. It's written by Zaretta Hammond, and she also came and did a workshop for us in our anti-racist University 101, and really dynamic person, not just speaker, but dynamic person. And in her book, she really takes a deep dive into culture. And one thing that I learned from that, I think one of my biggest takeaways from the book is there's an index. There's like a scale or an index. I think index is a better term for rating countries based on whether they are a community oriented country or communitivist or an individualistic society. And I learned in that book that the United States rates a 98% on this index for individualism, right? And so many of the other countries rate higher in communitivist cultures. And it just was like a jolt. Like it, I've always known it, like intrinsically I knew that we are a very individualistic society. I just never thought about the other cultures. I saw it in action because I taught English as a second language for 3-4 years, and I saw it with my students who were mostly Latino students. And a brand new student comes to class come to the school for the first day, everybody's helping that student. Like I didn't even have to ask. They're already helping that student find the lunchroom, helping that student, open his locker, helping that student find which bus to ride, helping. Like, and it is not even a question. They were so helpful towards one another. And my students, I had 2 of them get into a fight, but later they're hugging each other. It's like, it's just like so community oriented. And I actually never really thought, of course I noticed it, I just didn't think of the why behind the actions until I read this book. So that was like one of my big takeaways. However, this book right here, Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain, will teach you how to incorporate culturally responsive practice in your classroom. And I think the reason why culturally responsive teaching is so important when it comes to working with students, minority students, or students who come from impoverished backgrounds, is because we can accelerate their learning. We can level up their learning, right? Many of my current students are reading on very low levels. However, I'm not going to dumb down my work for them. I'm gonna teach to bring them up, right? And culturally responsive teaching is a way to do that. And if you are not familiar with culturally responsive teaching or how to incorporate that into your practice, get this book. It actually is a must read for every educator. It should be in every teacher's library. Every teacher, it's a must read. And not only is it a must read, but it's a book that I will come back to on a regular basis. Some books you just read them and then you're done with them because you pretty much got it. You got it. You know it. You got it. Well, this is one of those books where you're going to come back to it and come back to it and come back to it, because the practice is something that you'll need to come back to, review it on a regular basis. So, culturally responsive teaching in the brain. So, I am a literacy coach and a literacy specialist. They are one and the same. It just depends on what the administrator wants the most, is what I would do. However, as a literacy specialist, I have heard uh, teachers say, I'm not a reading teacher. Uh, if they're not teaching English language arts, or if they're not teaching a specific reading class, if they're the art teacher, if they're the music teacher, if they're the history teacher, if they're the science teacher, if they're the French teacher, every teacher has to incorporate literacy in their practice, right? So, the last teacher that I coached, she said those words, and I said, "Yeah, you're right. You're not a reading teacher. However, you have to teach your students how to read for art. You have to teach your students how to talk about art, right? So that means that you want to give them the vocabulary that they need. You want to help them understand what they're reading in regards to art. So, no, you're not a reading teacher. You're an art teacher who needs to teach your students how to read for art." So, this next book, it's called Building Literacy in the Secondary Content Area Classrooms. So, yes, it's for secondary. However, even if you are teaching middle school or elementary school and your subject is not English language arts, you will still get value out of this book. This book is jam-packed with all that you need to teach vocabulary, to teach reading comprehension for your content area. So I recommend that every educator gets this book. This book, actually, the way it is set up, it's kind of like teaching you. Each chapter is set up kind of like how you would actually teach a lesson, right? It gives you the vocabulary prior to your reading it. It first of all gives you a anticipatory set with questions like, what do you know about reading comprehension? It gives you, the way it's set up, it's like almost just like a reading lesson. So it's like a really powerful book. And if you are struggling with how to teach your students reading comprehension for your subject area, whether it's science, whether it's math, whether it is history, whether it's PE, health and PE, whether it's computer science, whatever your subject is, this book will help you level up your students' reading for your subject area. So grab that book. It is, and I'm not, what is it called? I'm not making any money off of this. I'm not an affiliate marketer or any of that. I'm just telling you about the books that I have in my library that have really helped me develop as an educator. So I think you should grab all of these books. Two of them are written by people of color. I think it's two of them. So that would be Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain, How to Be an Anti-Racist. I think those are the two that are written by people of color. Nope, it's three. Also, We Want to Do More Than Survive. So We Want to Do More Than Survive, Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain, and How to Be an Anti-Racist. Those three are written by people of color. Grab all of the books, though, because they are so powerful you will be changed after you read these books, for sure. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. And if you got value out of this video, I ask that you would like this video and subscribe and hit the notification bell. And not only that, but drop in the comments books that have leveled up your practice. Share in the community so other people can glean from your books and perhaps add to their library as well. I'll see you in the next video, and until next time, continue to level up. I'll see you in the next one.